In today's Farm Report, President Obama signed 2 trade bills on Monday. He talked about the hard road the bills took to get to his desk and how the bills will help workers.
I think it's fair to say that getting these bills through Congress has not been easy. They've been declared dead more than once. They have inspired long and passionate debates, and that's entirely appropriate for our democracy. That's how this country is supposed to work. We're supposed to make sure that we air our differences, and then ultimately Congress works its will, especially on issues that inspire strongly held feelings on all sides. I would not be signing these bills if I was not absolutely convinced that these pieces of legislation are ultimately good for American workers. I would not be signing them if I wasn't convinced they'd be good for American businesses.
The bill signing was bipartisan, and it also had Secretary Tom Vilsack there. Vilsack comments on what the bills will do.
This is an opportunity now for us to complete the important work of concluding the trade agreements that are being negotiated, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This sets a framework for being able to do that. It provides an incentive for us to getting that work done. And we know if it gets done, we're going to see increased agricultural sales, increased exports, better paying jobs for Americans, and it's certainly going to be beneficial to rural America. So it was great to watch the president do what presidents do, which is to use a lot of pens to sign their name on a very important piece of legislation.
Vilsack said that it also took a lot of compromise for the bills to make it to Obama's desk.
People are supposed to have heartfelt, passionate views on things, but at the end of the day, they need to find common ground. And in this particular case, the common ground was greater transparency in trade discussions, an opportunity for Congress and the public to have plenty of time to review any trade agreements negotiated, assurances that we looked at higher standards for labor and environment. I'm fairly confident that the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement will set an historic marker in terms of higher standards. As the President said, for far too long, the United States has been dealing with trade agreements that have basically been the lowest common denominator, and now we're going to be about advocating for the rest of the world to have the high standards that we've had in environment and labor. And obviously, tremendous opportunity to reduce tariffs and to get a system that's science-based and rules-based, all of which will play to the competitive edge that the U.S. has.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack talking about the compromises that were made to get 2 recent trade bills passed.
Winter wheat producers are using every moment they can to get into the field, to get wheat out of the field. Agriculture Department meteorologist Brad Rippey says during this past week,
harvest progress finally starting to catch up in the previously wet and flooded areas of the southern and central Great Plains. So overall progress doubling during the week from 19 to 38% harvested.
But what kind of wheat crop are they bringing out? As we start the week, only 41% of winter wheat's rated in good to excellent shape, 23% poor to very poor. Rippey says the wheat has had 3 strikes against it.
Winter conditions that were harsh in the central plains, spring flooding in the southern plains, and more recently hot, dry weather in the northwest, all taking a bit of a hit on the winter wheat crop.
Meanwhile, for spring wheat, heading is racing ahead. 49% already heading. Usually it's only 29% at this time. Condition?
Holding up reasonably well despite the hot weather in the northwest.
Nationally, 72% of spring wheat in good to excellent shape. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Sustainability is a growing trend among large retailers, Walmart being the most recent. And that may put some additional pressure on producers to keep up with the standards. Jim Sulphur with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office has more.
A couple of weeks ago, Walmart came out and took a position on animal welfare and antibiotic use in farm animals, and they're touting this as their next step to improve sustainability of what it sells. And whether you like Walmart or don't like Walmart, they're the biggest retailer in the U.S., and when they speak, I think it's important. Everybody tends to listen, especially their suppliers. And among the things from the report that Walmart is asking its suppliers to do is to report and take disciplinary and corrective action in cases of animal abuse, animals, of course, providing products to Walmart, and find and implement solutions to address animal welfare concerns in housing systems, painful procedures, and euthanasia. And they basically came out and said, we will not tolerate animal abuse. We support the globally recognized 5 freedoms of animal welfare and committed to providing our partners with practices to consistently implement those freedoms. For folks that aren't listening, there is kind of a list of 5 freedoms. I'll read through those. Freedom from hunger and thirst. Freedom from discomfort, and that's provide adequate environment, including shelter and comfortable resting area. Freedom from pain, injury, or disease by ensuring prevention or rapid diagnosis and treatment. Freedom to express normal behavior, providing sufficient space, proper facilities, and freedom from fear of distress, so by ensuring conditions and treatment which avoid mental suffering for animals. And you can say, well, these are animals and we live in a rural area and they don't understand it, but I think we can all agree, I think everyone in agriculture agrees with those freedoms, that we really want to take the best care we can of animals. And there's been a lot of research being done throughout the world actually on kind of animal welfare. Now we have really good methods that we can measure that. But getting back to Walmart, I think it's really important that all of us are aware that this is really being driven. It kind of starts with the consumer. So Walmart sees that their potential purchasers are demanding more increase in animal welfare and antibiotic use to them, and then of course they're passing it on to their suppliers. You can say, well, what does that have to do with farming or out on my farm? Well, ultimately I think what you're going to see, and you're seeing some of it already, is these audit programs that the industries have put into place. I think you're going to also see in the future more third-party audits. So you may have your milk plant or somebody else audit your farm, but I think you're going to see that maybe the Walmarts of the world or other companies demand third-party audits, and there are companies right out there now that do third-party audits. So Walmart's going to hire them, and they're going to go to pick a milk company, and they're going to say, we want you to audit 5% of their farms or something to make sure that they're following through on what they're doing. So just to raise your awareness that this is a big deal, and of course when Walmart's implement something, they're probably going to follow through, and it does have ripples in the marketplace. This has been Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension in St. Cloud.
Do you love fresh cherries this time of year, especially for Independence Day cookouts and celebrations? Take note then. Warmer than normal weather this spring in the Pacific Northwest contributed to an earlier harvest of this year's sweet cherry crop.
Warmer, drier weather all through the winter and into the spring, just not as many cherries produced based on those conditions.
Lance Honig of USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service says in particular that resulted in a reduction in cherry production from Washington State and Oregon, which combined produces 2/3 of the nation's sweet cherries. However,
the good news in the sweet cherry crop is it's early, so we should see plenty of those cherries in the grocery stores fresh this year for the 4th of July.
And while there will be plenty of cherries to eat over the next few weeks due to the smaller production,
come into the season, they may run out a little bit sooner than we sometimes see.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.